It's like we become waiters and we're giving appetizers of the true meal. One of my favorite restaurants is Papado's Seafood Kitchen. My Sky, one of these days we have to go. My main meal is blackened catfish Opelousas. It has 8,419 calories in it, but it's worth it.
I
But
love blackened catfish.
before I eat it though, I get the oysters Papado. And that appetizer prepares me for what's to come. Well, the Lord's Prayer forms us into the image of Christ, and our lives and the things that we do in partnership with God becomes an appetizer to the main meal, the Lamb's Supper, where there's room enough for everybody at his table and he doesn't run out of food. So we don't have to have a scarcity mentality. We can have a generous mentality. And the beauty is what's going to happen in eternity, we can give a foretaste of it in the present. So the Lord's Prayer is not an escape plan, it's a rescue plan.
Okay, don't get off your soapbox quite yet,
Okay.
because there's a lengthy section of your book which is all about the kingdom, and as you've mentioned, God's will on earth as it is in heaven, and our role in that kingdom and our participation in it. You talk about our identity as royal priests, and there's a section in here where you talk about what does it mean for us to actually manifest that kingdom, or to bring that foretaste of the kingdom to our world, and you kind of root it in our call to love our neighbor as ourselves.
Yeah.
And then you expand from Leviticus 19, where that command is originally given, and you define what does it mean to love our neighbor. And a
Yeah.
couple of the points you make are loving our neighbor means living with integrity. It means pursuing economic justice. It means
Hmm.
caring for those with disabilities. It means seeking an equitable justice system, and
Hmm.
then living with grace, compassion, mercy, and forgiveness. Now,
Yes.
all that's rooted in Leviticus 19.
Yes.
You realize you're going to upset some people when you say
Good.
things like our call is economic justice and an equitable justice system. I mean, those are things that a lot of people in the contemporary American church go, "Oh, no, 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 that's not God's kingdom. That's all politics, and that's social issues, and that has nothing to do with what Jesus talked about."
Mhm.
So, get back on that soapbox and tell me
Yeah.
why these are critical to the kingdom of God.
Yeah. So one of the things that's important for us is we have to read Jesus's words and Jesus's culture for what Jesus meant. Unfortunately, in a lot of modern Western Christianity in America, we have taken Jesus's words and we have overlaid them in progressive liberal politics, or we have overlaid them in conservative Republican politics. And Jesus is not a donkey, and Jesus is not an elephant. Jesus is a lamb. And the message of Jesus is supremely political, but not in the sense that we think. When Jesus said, or when Jesus' followers said Jesus is Lord, that was very political because they were saying that Caesar may think he's Lord, Caesar may think he has power, but the kingdom of God is greater. And what I mean by that is this is the politics of Jesus transcends these petty politics of America. Now, do I vote? Heck yeah, I vote. I'm a black man. My people were lynched, burned, churches bombed, dogs set on them so I can vote. And I vote, but I understand it's a secondary order. The primary order is the kingdom of God. And can the kingdom of God work through elephants and donkeys? Yes. But what we've done now is we have trumped the kingdom of God with the kingdom of man. And so, as believers, we should work for economic justice. Like, why wouldn't we? Like, think of Acts chapter 6. In Acts chapter 6, the Hellenistic Greek widows were not being taken care of. The Hebraic Greek widows were having more economic favoritism than they were. So, what did they do? They let the apostles know, and the apostles did not do affirmative action, but they affirmed the right action, and they put 7 Hellenistic Greek men in charge of the daily distribution of food. So, we as the church should have food opportunities. So here at Transformation Church, we have what's called the Hope Dealers Market, where our church gives funds And several times a week, there are a line of cars around our church shopping in our grocery store for free. Over the years, we've prepared over 200,000 backpack meals for kids in public schools because we found out 11 years ago that there are kids who go home every weekend who don't have enough food to eat. And we said, not on our watch. We also need doctors and lawyers and dentists to develop free health care and clinics. And we also need lawyers and businessmen to say, hey, how can we tilt the playing field? Because it's one thing to help people, but it's another thing to change laws that are unjust that keep people poor. Those are gospel issues. If that's not a gospel issue, Jesus should have just told the people who listen to him preach all day, hey, I know you guys are hungry, but go pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No, what he did is he took the Happy Meal from a little boy and multiplied it. And here's something else that's pretty cool, Sky, is Jesus did two miracles around the Sea of Galilee, one on the Gentile side and one on the Jewish side, to give a foretaste of how Jews and Gentiles are the people of God. Jesus wants to feed everybody. And it's ironic, the only people that are going to get mad at me talking about economic injustice are people who profit from an unjust system.
Ouch.
And so for we as the people of God, right? I grew up poor. I grew up in the hood, poor by American standards. But what good is my life if I'm not using it to bless other people? You know, years ago, like 8, 9 years ago, I said, why is it that Walmart and Amazon, why can't they pay for college for people who work at their stores? Well, they're doing that now. You know why? Because the workers said, we're not coming back to work. And, you know, for the Waltons, they have four of the richest people in America. Like, man, paying for college for people, that's a good thing to do. How much more do we need? And so generosity is important. But then what the progressives do is they think that utopia can come in. What the conservatives do is, well, we just need to go to heaven when we die. And I think Jesus is saying, no, we cannot usher in utopia, but we certainly can give glimpses of what the kingdom is. I heard this years ago from a believer in another country, and he said, you know, it's hard to share the gospel with people when their stomachs are grumbling and they can't hear. You feed them physical bread and spiritual bread. Recently, Christine Kane came and preached at our church, and she goes, I don't understand Americans. She goes, for me, evangelism, discipleship, and justice are all the same. There is no bifurcation or trifurcation. And I think we see that in Jesus. Jesus invited people into the kingdom of God. Not only did he forgive sins, but he healed broken bodies.
I've heard that same comment from people overseas who don't understand the American church and our bifurcation of these issues. So the fact that you are teaching your church and through this book teaching all of us the unity that these things have within the kingdom of God is really, really important. It's something we need healed in our American imagination around these things. Okay, finally, before we wrap up, one of the reoccurring